Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, when did you come? You came to Cadaqués. Was that where you first lived in Spain? Or?
That was where we first lived in Spain, yes. I stayed because I had no reason to go anywhere else. It was marvelous.
When was that?
Well, I have to think about that. It was the early 50s.
The early 50s? Huh.
Yeah.
And what was
No,
like?
the early 60s. No, it wasn't. It was the end of the 50s.
Huh. Into the 50s?
Yeah.
What was,
So I had all the 60s in Cadaqués, most of the 70s.
what was good about it?
Well, I was there for one. That was the main thing. I was just there. It was heaven because, for one thing, the Spaniards, the Catalans, the village people, were extremely pleasant. And it was a very good time to be in Spain because Franco was still alive, and that made to be a foreigner in Spain was marvelous. No fun to be a Spaniard. The fear, not fear, but looking over one's shoulder, over their own shoulders, was palpable. They weren't free to do anything, and they all had horror stories about, not horror, but stories about the local priest, for instance, who was a crazy fascist. You know, they didn't feel free, and they didn't have any money either. A little bit of money, of foreign money, went a long way. What else do you want to know?
Well, so it was, but for a foreigner there,
For a foreigner,
little money went a long way.
For a foreigner, yes. Now, of course, practically anything is cheaper than the euro.
That's right. But the peseta in those days, a few pesetas went a long way.
A few pesetas went a long way, and a few dollars bought even more pesetas.
Yeah. And was there a community of artists there in Cadaqués? I always thought of it as sort of an artistic community.
Yes, it was. It was. Well, I mean, yes. Lots of entertaining people had houses there.
And the authorities encouraged their presence there then?
Oh, absolutely. The nicest man in town, local man, was the sergeant of the civil guard. He was both clever and relaxed. I miss the civil guard. I used to when I lived in the country, because they were there, and well, of course, being a foreigner was like a guarantee. I think, looking back on it, and we had some bad mayors, and we had one splendid mayor. That was, and under Franco, the mayor was named from Madrid. No nonsense about voting.
And did people speak Catalan there, or?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Not me, but the first cook we had was spoke enough French to, and bit by bit I learned to run the house in Castilian. Catalan was forbidden. I was told later about my children that Mariana, who was charming, who was working for us, would go in the afternoons when she wasn't in the house, would go on her own and her sisters-in-law to classes in Catalan, because they'd never been allowed to learn their own language in school, which was rather attention-attracting, I thought. Then I was told, which was a very widespread story that that a man and a friend of his were speaking Catalan in a restaurant, and along came somebody who hit them both and said, "Speak the language of the empire." Okay. Then I heard the same story once Franco was dead, and Spain was her own master, about two women in the street speaking Castilian to each other. It was very much a social thing. I've never been to a house for a meal where they spoke Spanish at home, where they spoke Catalan at home. Never. Still not.
They speak Spanish. They speak Castilian.
They speak Castilian. Anyway, I heard the same story about two women speaking Castilian in the first days after Franco's death, and two men came, two little girls come to them and hit them both and said, "Speak Catalan." I don't believe either story.
And when you first went to Cadaqués, there must have just been a handful of foreigners, weren't there? Or were there already a lot of foreigners?
No. Well, what do you call a lot?
Well, more than a dozen or 2 dozen.
Yes, well, there weren't.
Yeah.
But more than 2 dozen. That counts wives. You see what I mean? There were French, and there were, in the summers, lots of Americans had houses there. Not lots, but some. And English. French and English, and, well, Americans.
And when you came, I mean, for the first while that you were there, it must have seemed, well, it must have been in those days a much more foreign country than it would be now for somebody coming from the States, I would think.
I was coming from Paris.
You coming from Paris. And much more, but it must have been much more different than...
Well, it was a village, which Paris is not.
No.
It was marvelous. It was a marvelous place to bring up children.
Yeah.
Everybody, it was like a large nursery school. No child of one's could make a mistake, do something unforgivable in the village without Mummy hearing about it in 5 minutes. You know, it was absolutely marvelous. You could go anywhere that a child could. And I think a village is a very good place to bring up a child. Have you got children?
I do. I have a grown child here.
They always have a place to go back to.
That's very good. And then you were still in Cadaqués when Franco died?
No, I was in... By that, we were in Boston by that time. I'd gone back to America because my son had done his French bachelor in Cadaqués, but obviously he couldn't go to university there, as there wasn't one, and so we moved to Boston so he could go to Harvard.
And then, so you were in Boston when Franco
died.
You remember hearing the news?
Yeah, I came back from the office. He told me every dinner, as I remember, and I raised my glass and said, "Viva el Rey," and he threw his glass of wine in my face. He was very red at the time. And I was right and he was wrong. But it was a good place to be a foreigner in. That's what you wanted to know then.
And then when did you come back to live in Catalonia again?
Oh, well, after Quentin, my son, died, I was in New York, and then my parents had died, and I had no reason to stay in New York particularly. So I came back to Catalonia.
Huh. And came to
Barcelona.
When was that? What years would that have been?
Well, it was long after. 78, 79, 90 something. No, I don't remember. But the government was in place, and lots of political talk, but none of it revolutionary. Well, the other good thing about Catechese was that the Barcelona of 90 up was hacked out on the terrace of a cafe that we all went to.
Well, was the socialist in power when you came back?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, Jordi Pujol. Well, Catalonia, no. Jordi Pujol.
But in the government, in the national government,
Yeah.
in the Spanish government.
Yeah. So there's been 3 years so far of socialists, and then there were 8 years of Aznar.
Sure.
And before that there was
Felipe.
Felipe, yes.
Yeah. So Felipe, when you came back, Felipe was in power.
Oh, yes, that's right. I was in Algeria, of all places, when that election took place.
Huh. So you weren't here for the attempted coup in '81?
No.
And when you came back,
it was all over with.
Whole nother place, huh?
What?
Well, it was a whole different place when you came back.
Yes, except that yes, I think that unless you're, I read newspapers every day, but unless you're involved in politics, personally involved, and that's one thing I can't be in this. No foreigner can be, and I can make many speeches about Mr. Reagan and Mr. Bush, but I can't vote. And I can make many speeches to you. I can make many speeches about Aznar, but I can't vote.
But lots of other changes you must have seen when you got back.
Oh, well, yes. More money is the main thing. Nobody's poor in Spain anymore.
People were poor in Caracas when you were...
People were very poor in Caracas. And now all the young women I had working in the house are all married with mothers and grandmothers. But now they all have cars. And their husbands do too, of course. And in their houses are television sets the size of that sofa. But when we lived there, I would to go to the Figueres market on Thursdays. I arrived the year after it was no longer necessary, as I was told that it had been, for a person of Caracas to go to Figueres, which is not very far over the mountains, without the permission of the Civil Guard in advance. It was very disagreeable. Well, disagreeable. There was no personal freedom. I was told that the idiot priest in the summer, Mass, had a little one year, an altar boy stationed at the door of the church to pass his hands over the girls' legs to make sure they were wearing stockings. Yeah. And the same priest, I was told by a cook that we had that her sister got sick with meningitis, and that was before there were any antibiotics in Spain, and you were going to get them by paying a fortune. And their father, went to the local priest to ask for money to cure her, to treat her. And he said, "I've never seen you at Mass," and of course not. You know, it was a very disagreeable. What you didn't see, if you were foreign, was this substratum of suffering, but daily limitations.
Yeah, that's right. Was there a bus that went from Cadaqués to Figueres, I guess?
Yes, there was.
It's a hell of a road, really.
But you got used to it. Once I was murdered by. I wasn't murdered, obviously, but I was attacked by I don't know how you say a grand duke in English. It's a kind of owl, simply immense, white, but with a wingspan like that. And the road was, because the road didn't have, it wasn't the tourism that there is now. And the road was dangerous if you didn't know it. And one morning I was told that 2 or 3 young French, unknown, had died on the road. They'd driven off the edge. And I thought, how very odd. And I thought it much more when I saw the wreckage of the car down in the ravine, because where they'd fallen from was one of the few bits of that road that is a straightaway for 100 meters. And how could they? They were coming back from a night place on flat. And so they must have been a little bit drunk, as the driver was. And I thought, how very odd, but that was that. Shortly thereafter, I was coming home to Cadaqués from dinner party. It was 2 or 3 in the morning. And suddenly, this grand duke came at me with his claws out. Well, I knew the road, so I did not turn the wheel. But that's what happened to the young French, I think. He must have had a nest up there somewhere. But that's the nearest I've come to an accident on that road so far.
So you had a car in those days?
Oh yes, I couldn't have been there for 5 minutes without a car.
But there must not have been a lot of traffic.
No, I never took the bus. I wouldn't know. But I hardly ever went on Thursdays to the market in Figueres without somebody saying, "Could you drive me, please?" Now they all have cars, and so do their 18-year-old children.
And they're cooks. Too.
And they're cooks.
Children.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it really is better now. It really is better.
It is better. Because at least you can get medicine when you need medicine. That's really important.
Yeah. But that, you couldn't have got, to get antibiotics, I was living in Paris, I had to know somebody who knew a pilot for TWA who would bring it to me from America. You couldn't get it in France either. But of course you didn't have to ask your local priest for it either.
No.
And also it was prettier, come to think of it. Now it's very built up. Of course, the foreigners have bought all the grandmother's houses of the people who worked for us. Logically would have gone to them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But Granny had sold them all to us.
Yeah. Right.
So that they built flats. What, have you been to Catechess?
Many times. Many times.
You have friends there?
No, I haven't got friends. I had a friend there when I first came here, and then no. But when people come to visit me from the States, I very much like to take them for the weekend to Catechess. So if it's a nice time of year, not too much Tramontana,
And not too many Germans.
and not too many Germans. I like to go. Catechess is beautiful.
Yes.
I took my mother there more than once. My mother liked it very much. When she would come over, we'd often go and spend the weekend up in Catechess. It's very, very nice. But it must have been very different back then, in the same way that probably the Formentera was different back then.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But mostly fishermen? Is that, was that?
No, nobody.
Nobody fished?
They made their August, so to speak, working for the foreigners in the summer. And then the men did nothing all winter. And they sat in the local cafes. There was a bench in the place where the market took place. It was a very modest market. And it was called the bench of the Sino Foss, which is Catalan for if it weren't for. I'd go out fishing, Sino Foss. There's Tramontana today, or Sino Foss that my wife is making cocido. You know, I mean, they would. I can't see you. Yes, I can. I hope you haven't removed the shutter at any point.
Move the shutter? No.
Was the casino there? There's a big bar sort of on the waterfront called the Casino. It looks like it's been there some time.
Oh yes, that was, well, Catechess was originally. It was very rich. Well, there were 2 or 3 rich families which built their houses like the casino was one. So the one next door to us was one too. And they made their living from vineyards, because all of the mountains, hills around are terraced, as you may have noticed. And those have been there since the Romans. Because of course there are a lot of wrecks at Cabo Cruz. I fetched up a couple of amphorae, broken, which was, I think, illegal. The Catechess lived by, there was no road to Figueres, but they were sailors. And they sailed with wine and oil to Cuba in boats that were not much bigger than this. And in Cuba, they sold the wine and the oil, and then they sailed. Then they went up to some southern port in America, like Galveston, or southern port in southern America, South of the United States. And they bought American manufactured goods, and then sailed back across the Atlantic. Sailed is the wrong word, and sold their manufactured goods in Italy, but they could afford to buy them. And then finally they came back to Catechess. That was an 8-month round trip. But the town hall, which is in Promontory, which closes off it sticks out, has a collection of photographs, marvelous, of how Catechess was in the 19th century. And of course, eventually the back and forth trade died, and how they came back from Italy was they came back with ballast for their boats, and most of which was marble bits of pebbles from Carrara, and beds of wrought iron, known as peacock beds. Every house had 2 or 3, and they were immediately snapped up by French antique dealers.
I think so, yeah.
What else can I tell you?
Well, that's about it. It's a good idea of how it was there. Sounds like it was a great place.
It was bliss. It really was. I was there the other day, June, and it was absolutely, well, July and August were always times when I went away all day. I took the boat to this or that cove, and stayed there until there was luckily no club, nowhere you had to turn up. You know, it was nothing like Ibiza.
No.
And we all had pretty good cooks, and we were at home, either at home or in somebody else's house, or in a cove between us and Cabo Cruz, us and Borroses to Cabo Cruz.
One of those beautiful colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which I presumably aren't so beautiful anymore. Then the Club Mediterranee arrived at one point. And we all thought, oh my God. But they were marvelous. They were so disciplined. And wherever they went, they took their clients, because they had a big boat to go out. Whatever beach they took their clients to, in September, they came and cleaned up. You could tell they were not a Spanish organization.
And in the wintertime, you pretty much stay at home or go to someone else's house, I guess.
Well, there were fewer houses to go to in the wintertime.
Yeah.
No, there were a few people fixed. Writers mostly. And one went away, of course, also. I don't go away anymore. I just look out the window. like 2 old men in there, the window of their club. There's only one of me. Where are you from?
I'm English. From
Well,
England.
yeah, it's a big country.
Yorkshire.
Ah,
Do you know Harrogate?
no, I don't.
It's a small spa town.
I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yorkshire is so beautiful.
It is. It is.
How long have
It's
you-
the green.
How long have you been here?
Almost 7 years. It's been.
How many, you must know, how many foreigners are settled in Barcelona, like you two and me?
We don't know. And we've never been able, you can't know really because many people don't register at the consulates. So
Yeah.
it's quite difficult. We've been estimating, I'd say, so I would say actually probably around 80,000 English speakers, I mean, just.
Yeah. Well, some time ago, I had a friend who was the consul general here. She was very fat and black, and she caused a lot of distress in the local government because it was taken as a sign of lack of appreciation for Catalonia when she first arrived. She was the best consul we've ever had, but within a fortnight of her being here, she was both Pascal Maragall, who was then mayor, and Jordi Pujol's best friend. You know, she absolutely. Well, anyway, she told me that the consulate was also in those days took care of Valencia, Tarragona and Valencia, and she said there were about 100,000 Americans registered, and that was several years ago.
Ooh, 100,000 Americans.
Registered at the consulate.
Ooh, it's a lot.
But of course that includes Valencia.
Could be. It seems like a lot to me.
It seems absolutely horrible fine to me. But I've never heard English spoken on the street.
No.
I don't think.
I do these days quite a bit here English spoken
What?
on the street. I do quite a bit now here English spoken on the street.
Really?
Yeah, and in this neighborhood, in fact, on Enrique Granados, which I'm always walking up and down.
Yes, well, that was one of the good moves of, I forget which, I don't know which, but mayor making that block pedestrian.
Yes, it was a good move here. It's a good block.
Yeah. It's a pity that the restaurants there are so lousy, but
Oh, well.
but
There's lots of them. Lots of them.
there certainly are. There's a Petit Paris.
That's right.
You know it? Yes. And I recommend to you.
Every day it seems like some small shop that's been here ever since I've been here disappears and another restaurant.
Yeah. Well, in other neighborhoods, it disappears to make room for a bank.
Yeah, so.
Oh, in smaller towns, in Figueres and La Bisbal, it's a bank that takes over.
Yeah. To give out mortgages, no doubt. Yeah.
What?
To give out mortgages, yeah.
Well, yeah. But where do you live?
I live in Villalobat,
Ah,
between London and
See,
Paris.
see.
London and Paris.
yeah.
It's quite quiet for being so close to the centre.
Yes. And what's it near? It's not near anything, is it?
No. That's why it's quiet.
Yes. Where do you live?
I live on Aribao and Aragon. It's not quiet.
Not quiet at
Not
all.
at least, not at all. Incessantly noisy.
Well, this is appalling. And of course, the bedrooms are on that side, where the diagonal side. When I took this place, I made the mistake of breaking down the wall here and making it the drawing room. I should have put the bedrooms here, where it's quiet.
Yeah.
And the drawing room on the side. But I've done it now, and it's very ugly downstairs, but there's enough room, almost enough room upstairs. The downstairs is appalling. Did you see it? And did you pay attention? Yes, when you came in.
Mm-hmm.
It has all the features of, well, the building does, of a bad epoch of bad taste. Old, but bad taste.
But very well preserved. Bad taste.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's. I think only because it's next door to the Daba, which is a wonderful building. It's classified.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it wouldn't be if it were anywhere else. It's on its own merits, which has nothing to recommend it.
Yeah. No, I've seen several buildings like this in various parts of the city that are practically abandoned. Still live,
really?
but especially the public spaces like the lobbies.
Yeah.
Are practically abandoned. There's no portero. There's
None of the buildings in the. I was house hunting for a long time, so I've seen a lot of flats in Sanchez, and none of them has a service entrance or a service lift. I mean, nor the individual flats, nor the building itself. I find that very strange because they were all built when there were thousands of servants,
It's true.
and I don't know how they worked it.
That's true.
And they're all built like dumbbells. They explode on the window side, but they're narrow and dark.
Yeah, that's right.
And this luckily is taller than the Damo, so it gets sun from no unsanitary building that I've seen in the middle.
No. No. I live in a typical ensanche flat. With nice high ceilings, but it's inside in the middle. During the day, it's dark.
Yeah, that's why you run a magazine that gets you out in the street.
That's right. That's right. That's good. That's good. That'll be fine for us. That's very interesting.